Please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a quorum. One member is absent, and he could be showing up. He was having a medical procedure this morning, so if Gary gets here, it'll be a little later. But we do have a quorum. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from the last meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on to 3.01 staff reports. Pat?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's been a busy start of the year, so we're excited about the upcoming golf season. A couple recaps for us. We had a couple tournaments in November, December. We had night putting and night golf. Those are very popular events for us. We sold out on both of those. The weather was a little chilly, but it was a good turnout. On the next page, you can see the results of both tournaments. The turkey shoot is our night putting, where the name comes from the fact that everybody that plays gets a turkey. The two-person team gets a turkey. And we were able to donate 9 turkeys to the food bank, so we were excited about that. You might recognize some names there as far as winners. And we had a putting, hole-in-one putting competition as well, and somebody came really close but didn't quite get it. And then also at Pebblebrook, we had the night golf. So we have 2 different flights, a flight that plays on the front 9 and a flight that plays on the back. 9-hole scramble, and again, a little chilly, but had a food truck out there for food and beverage, and it went well. So appreciate everybody's help in running that. We had a few volunteers, and they did a wonderful job. Paul Gruza does a great job for us in this area. Here's some pictures of some participants from both events. You might recognize a few of them. And that's the night golf there with Queso Good food truck. Mexican food is what we served. The next 2 upcoming events are the couples therapy. It's a scramble over at Stardust. Being an executive golf course, we limited it to 88 players, and we sold it out. And then this Glendale, Arizona Bowl, a.k.a. the Super Bowl, we had 128 spots for that. We didn't want to go 144 because we want to keep the pace of play going on that, so 128. And believe it or not, that sold out on Monday at 11 o'clock. So 4 hours later, it sold out. So again, good participation. We enjoy running these events, and it just kind of, I think, gives us some excitement. So good times had by all. Next slide, if you would, Pete. The next slide here is the local rules, and I'm going to introduce Tom about this, Tom Wogomuth, but we'll talk, Tom, about this. But we had a couple meetings with Tom and his wife Alice, David Eichner, and Phil Kelly. All of them are certified USGA rules experts that live in the community. Tom has been very good about spearheading these changes. And we had a couple meetings discussing what needed to be changed. And the slide that you see here is a update and what we're recommending. Tom, would you like to add anything to that?
The changes are really, we have more rules changes that went into effect January 1 of this year. In fact, I leave here and go to Chandler for 4 days of rule school to make sure I knew all the new ones. The local rule sheet was able to be reduced because of if you look at the old sheet that he has on the backside, those two rules, the last two, have now been incorporated in the rules of golf, so they don't have to be put into the local rules. And these are the ones that we use for all 7 courses. The individual clubs, men's clubs, ladies' clubs, different groups, can add or subtract the legal local rules. They can't make up just ones that they feel like. There are restrictions on the local rules. The one big question is always the one that's for ball lost or out of bounds for under 2 penalty strokes, you can come back to the fairway. We don't put that in for all of the courses because if you go somewhere else and play and it's not in effect and you do it, you're going to get disqualified, playing from a wrong place, gaining a significant advantage. We leave it up to the individual clubs, and there are some of the clubs that play it all year round with that local rule in effect, but then when they play their club championship, they take it out. So we don't want to have it on the sheet that's published to everybody that plays out here, and that's what these rules are for.
Okay, very good. So, Harry, what we would like to do is get some feedback from the committee on this and accept this as our new local rules going forward, and however we need to do that, I'll let you handle that. Okay? Very good. Very good. Thank you. Wanted to give everybody an update. Call Center came aboard in October 10th to be exact, of this year. One of the changes we had for Call Center is that we added Saturday and Sunday morning hours. They're working, 2 people are working 7 a.m. to noon. Just a reminder for everybody, the Call Center is located at Pebblebrook. It's a small office that has 2 cubicles that answers all the phone calls for all 7 golf courses. As you can see, the numbers for calls received over the last 3 months, October, November, and December, I compared them to the previous year, and they were more because we've got 2 more days that are working. But the percentage of increase varied from 30 to 60% more calls being received. And this is really big for us because this is what helps put names on our tee sheets and fill our tee sheets and get them current and get them updated so that the starter doesn't have any more of a challenge at the counter checking people in. So this has been a very good program for us, very worthwhile, and we've got 8 dedicated people that really enjoy working in the call center. Green Team this month in January has already started. January 7th, this last Saturday, we had a free lesson for Green Team participants, and then we had a club giveaway. Late in December, we reached out to the community to ask for any club donations, and we received 40 sets of clubs from our community. Some of them were maybe Patty Berg 1950s, and we repurposed those to the first tee, but there were some good ones that we could pass on to ladies or men beginners, and we were very thankful for that. Out of the 50 or 40 that were donated, we had 7 new golfers pick up sets of clubs to start their golf journey here in Sun City West. So we were excited about the giveaway, and we're encouraged with all the good things that Green Team is doing. I wanted to share with you on this. We had a sale. Some of you might have taken advantage of it, the 12 Days of Christmas up at Grandview and other pro shops. Our sales for this year exceeded last year's number by $7,800. And we've created a partnership this last summer with Titleist and FootJoy, and it's been very, very good, I think, for both parties. We've committed to buying some product from them and getting as best pricing as we could with them. Some of the products, such as shorts, are on wheels, so we try and sell them, and if we don't sell through them, we're able to send them back. So it's been a good program for us. David Aaron in the Golf Lab continues to stay busy. I see David about every other week. We do a radio show together, and he's keeping me informed on his progress, staying very, very busy, club sales and club repair. So all components are now pretty much being delivered on time, but he went through a period where he was struggling with getting equipment, and I think that's all in the rearview mirror. And here I wanted to share with you that we're always looking for good employees. I need a couple ball pickers. You don't, Donna, I think this would work really well for you. You could walk home from there, couldn't you? But yeah, custodians and ball pickers, we're really trying to reach out and get some support there. And then we'll discuss later the rate comparison, Harry. And that concludes my report. Any questions or comments?
Any questions for Pat? Thank you. The next is Todd, but before we start with Todd, I just was informed earlier today that one of the members on the committee, and there's him and his two brothers live in this town, and their other brother took second in the U.S. Senior Amateur, and his name's Doug Hansel. And Dennis has got a couple comments that Doug has made about our courses that Todd needs to hear. So, Dennis?
Just one. Todd, he was very complimentary of the condition of our courses, and he has played all over the United States.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I'll certainly pass that on to our staff. So, thank you for that. All right, just a couple updates on our on golf maintenance, the annual water usage report. I'll talk about that. ADWR, I have some new information on that. Our frost delays, and then our Grandview project as well. So, Pete. All right, so our annual water usage report for 2022. If you look at where we're shaded in the blue, we use 3610. That's acre feet of water for all 7 golf courses. Our conservation allotment is 3918. So we were under our budget or under our conservation allotment this year by 308 acre feet. So we did pretty good. And if you look at that far right column, that 25, that indicates that we used 25 acre feet for the month of December. You know, we had some rainfall, so it certainly helped keep that number down a little bit. And then you've all seen this slide before. I did update that, and I put in last year's water usage and rainfall. As you can see, we've been under our allotment now for 10 years in a row, starting back in 2013. We had about an average rainfall this year of 7.74 inches. So, and we have more rain coming. We've had some at the beginning of the year. We have some more coming up in the next this weekend. So I'd like to note that we've had our irrigation systems off for about 18 days now. So I've had some comments as the golf course was awful wet, but that's just rain. And so, you know, it's not warming up that much, and things are just staying cold out there, and they're not drying up very much. So hopefully after this rain, we can keep the water off again for another week or so. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, just an update on the 4th and 5th management plans from the Arizona Department of Water Resources. 2023, we started our 4th management plan. That gave us a new allotment of 3842, or about 76 acre feet less than what we had last year. In 2025, we started our 5th management plan, and it goes up a little bit. It goes to 3850 acre feet, and again, this is for all 7 golf courses. Gives us an additional 7.3 acre feet, or about 1 acre foot per golf course, so not a lot. But you would think that this would be the other way around, where you'd have more water in 2023 with the 4th management plan, and then it would go down. But that's just not the case in this. So we arrived at those numbers with the turf acres of 767 acres in total for all 7. And then that in 2024 with the Grandview project, that's going to actually go down a little bit to 727. And then low water use, our desert landscape at 144 right now. And then that's going to go up with the Grandview project to 184 acres at that. And then we have the water surface acreage of 53 acres for all 7 golf courses. So all those were factored into arriving at those numbers that we have up there for our allotments. And then frost delay information, in November of 21, you can see we had one restriction, no frost delays, but this past year, we've had 7 restrictions, 1 frost delay. And then December of last year, we had 3 and 3. And this year, as you know, we've had several frost delays and restrictions, 5 and 9 frost delays. So we're way ahead of last year. So we've had our share of frost delays this year. And then Grandview project update, irrigation and turf removal. Let me get my sheet real quick. All right, we had our third and final public forum back in November on the 18th. We had a good turnout for that. We had it here in this room. In fact, I think we had a few more residents than we had for the first 2. We received grant money from the Office of Tourism in the amount of $420,000 and completed all the required paperwork for the grants. Road crossing main lines are scheduled to start going in around the second week of March, and I confirmed that this morning. Then on Monday, April 3rd, we start the project. We'll go to the back 9, and that will be closed. The front 9 will remain open, along with the putting green, driving range, and all that. So all the practice facilities will be open. And then somewhere around May 29th on Monday, we'll close the entire golf course with all the practice facilities. The golf course is scheduled to reopen on Tuesday, October 24th, after the fall over seating. So if everything goes as planned, we'll stick to those dates. And at this point, I don't see any reason that we won't be able to make that timeline. So, and that concludes my updates for today. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Are there any questions for Todd? Dennis?
Todd, I had a question. How did we find out about the availability of the grants and who prepared it?
Actually, Gary Brawley, who's our golf course designer, he brought that to our attention that we should do the paperwork and get going on that so that we could actually get that money. He did help us a little bit, but that came out of our office to fill out all the necessary paperwork and then follow through on all that. So it was a lot of paperwork, that's for sure. And then we just finalized that on December 29th. We turned in the last part of the required paperwork, and then we got notice just the other day that everything looks good, and we're in. In fact, we've already received our money as well. So,
Any other questions? Thank you, Todd.
thank you.
Next on the agenda is golf budget versus expensive. Cliff?
Thank you, Harry. I was sitting down here, you probably didn't see me. Snuck up on you. Hello, committee members, good afternoon. Just gonna go through the November financial results to budget and prior year. So getting started here, looking at the revenue compared year-to-date compared to budget, you'll see that we exceeded budget by $130,000. Golf fees came in, making up the significant portion of that at $70,000 over budget. And if you look at, looking at the golf fees coming in higher, that's attributable to we had 1,577 more rounds than we budgeted, roughly 1.6% over budget, which is great. Unfortunately, with some of those frost delays and things, I don't know, I think we're finalizing December now, so that'll come back a little bit. But, and if you look at the golf fees per round, it's a little over budget at 27 cents additional higher than budget per round, roughly 1%. Looking at the expenses compared to budget through November, salary and wages came in a little hotter than we expected compared to budget at $40,000, and supplies and equipment continues to be a challenge for us with fuel costs and inflationary pressures. We're really kind of battling that, but overall still favorable at $50,000 less than budget. So taking a look at the overall operating cash, we're roughly $180,000 favorable to budget. All right, now taking a look at prior year, actual versus prior year, We are on the revenue side, 130, and you can see that golf fees are carrying the brunt of that at 110,000. Looking at the notables here, rounds are down 2%, but we instated that fee increase, which we said would be roughly 7%, and that's what it's come in at. Fees per round, $1.62 per round, greater than prior year. So although rounds are down a little, we still made up for that on the per round. So again, some notables here are, although golf rounds are down, golf card sales are up. So people are investing in golf cards, and we're able to spread that. We spread that over the 12-month. We amortize that golf cart over 12 months. So we get the impact of that throughout 12 months, which is good. Keeps the revenue steady in the golf courses. So looking at the greens fee revenue changes, you'll see that the resident revenue is down 15,000. That's due to the increased golf card sales. So the greens fee revenue associated with a member just coming up and paying the regular greens fee versus paying a card fee is going to be negatively impacted there, but will be made up on the golf card revenue, as you can see right there. Outside play is down. So on the expense side, again, we talked about wages and benefits. We made a significant investment last year in our people. They are what keeps us going. And so that investment is reflected here at of the 440,000 increase in expenses, 340 is attributable to our people. Wages 173, health insurance 74,000, and then you'll see the impact of the seed, oil and gas, and tree trimming. Overall income from operations is negative 310,000 for golf. Now we do have, the next 5 months are the hay making season for us. So we're hoping that we certainly put it in the budget, but we're hoping to be able to stay track on budget, which we think we should be able to. So hopefully make up some of that ground over prior year. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Dennis?
In looking at the income statement, ancillary revenue, is that the golf cart rentals?
That's range balls and golf cart and golf club rentals, as well as cell tower revenue.
Would it be possible to separate golf cart rental and range balls to have their separate categories?
That could be something we discuss. Typically, it's been grouped in the ancillary revenue. It is separated on the divisional financial statement.
It's broken out at my level. Range versus.
But from a residential standpoint, it wouldn't be that difficult to break it out. And for someone on the outside looking in, they can tell right away what it is versus ancillary, which means nothing in and of itself.
Sure, we can look at that. What I would do is probably break out the cell tower revenue, because everything else is golf balls, golf carts, and range balls, golf carts, and club rentals.
Tom?
The income from operations is 310,000. I'll call it shortfall right now. What is the budgeted amount for that? Do you know off the top?
It's up in the presentation.
Yeah, I
So budgeted amount is, that's revenue. Can you go down to the summary? Budgeted amount is 2.76. So we're running 130,000 favorable to budget.
Okay, thank you.
on the revenue. 180 on the operating cash inflow.
Dennis?
Yeah, I just have one more question. In the category gain on asset disposal, I guess my question is what's being sold and how is it being disposed?
We recently exchanged some of the golf carts and sold those, and the gain on disposal from golf carts is reflected there.
How are the golf carts being sold?
Well, we have a buyer for those, and he buys them in a lump purchase.
I hate to ask it, but is that something we need 3 different vendors to see, to maximize our price for the carts?
Well, they have pretty much a market value. I'm not sure if we've done that in the past, but go ahead.
$1,500 a piece for them. And this one particular gentleman have purchased 2 lots, 2 separate years. And he's expressed an interest in the 3rd year if we ever do this. And then we also have somebody local that's interested. So right now, we're able to get rid of 17-year-old golf carts that we probably paid $4,000 for, and we're getting $1,500. So it's been beneficial for us.
Any other questions? Thanks, Cliff. In new business, first item is review of golf committee 50K and above. Is Carl here?
He's not. I'll take it from here.
Okay.
There are no changes since the committee recommendation at the last presentation. There are no changes. You'll see to the right the items that are over 50,000. None of those have changed. But if anyone has any questions, we could certainly answer those.
Are there any questions? The only comment that I made is, and I made it to Karen earlier, is behind us, but when we get the stuff up here to read, you got to make it a little bigger so we can see it. We're getting
Okay,
old.
I will do that. I promise. I promise I will do that in the
Okay.
future. Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Next item of new business, 4.02, tea time assessment. I don't know who's leading that discussion. Is it you, Pat?
Are we talking about filling the T sheet? Is that what we're talking about? Or are we talking about rate comparison?
Who put that on the agenda?
Oh, okay. Yes, this last year, last December, so that would have been December of 21 and January of 22. And these are things Todd and I have talked about over the years. We've always had struggles in those 2 months, particularly with frost delay. And so last year, 21 December, 22 January, we did move everything to 8 o'clock, trying to head off some of the frost and cart path restrictions. And I think Todd's slide showed that we had a few, but minimal. This year, I failed to do that, thinking that El Nino or something was going to happen, and it didn't. So we regrouped in December and said, let's do something in January to kind of hedge our bet. So this January, we moved everything back to 8 o'clock. And so far, that's the way it works, right? We haven't had a whole lot of frost, but we've had 1 or 2 days that could have been frost. So we're going to continue on through January, and our plan is to go back to 7:30 in February and continue on. The rounds lost have been a few, but comparatively speaking, we're doing well. And what we find is that when we have these 2-hour frost delays, that's a real dampener for everybody because they're not going to hang around for 2 hours, a lot of them. And then the makeup time gets different for each golf course depending on who doesn't show and who they can combine. So frost isn't a real good friend of ours, but I think in the future our suggestion would be to go to 8 o'clock on December and January and just kind of put that to bed. At least that would be my recommendation.
Okay, that's the proposal. Any questions, comments from the committee? The only comment I have is I live on Briarwood on hole 1, and they don't start till 8 o'clock in the mornings. And so they seem to do a pretty good job with that, and the people seem to be out at about the same time. The frost delays, I know they have them, but they seem to be able to get it done, and it works pretty well there, it looks like. Todd?
Just wanted to make a comment that this morning, we did have some frost out there. So if we were at 7:30 this morning, I think I would have sent a text out as a cart path restriction this morning. Even at 8 o'clock, we had a little bit. And last weekend, the same thing. Even at 8 o'clock, we had patches of frost out there, mostly in the shaded areas. But if we would have been at the 7:30 start time, you would have received a text, 30-minute cart path restriction. So.
Tim, do we need to have a recommendation to take to the board meeting, or is it just okay to? It's a operations issue. Okay. So I guess what I'm hearing is that we're all okay with it on the golf committee, so.
Pat, when does that go back to 7:30, or does it?
February it goes back to 7:30.
Okay.
March it goes to 7.
Okay.
From a procedural perspective, we sit around and talk about how we deal with early morning setbacks like frost delays. From the committee's level, when you got group play and open space on a tee sheet, right? If you have a frost delay, you're pushing people back. And that becomes a little problematic at times for Pat, as well as the players. Some get pushed back to a point where if they've got doctor's appointments or other things, they got to walk and leave the premise and they can't get their rounds in. So when it comes to group play, are groups out there, Pat, publicly, are they the first groups out, or do we have individuals out there that if we do have a delay, it's like, are we pushing them back or just saying no and leaving the groups at their scheduled times?
So a typical Monday, let's say, is there's 15 groups scheduled, and out of the 7 courses, 3 to 4 of those courses would have a 7:30 group trying to tee off. And so those are locked up. So 2 ways to handle frost delays would be to determine what's palatable. Is a half-hour delay palatable? And then just cut every time before that half-hour delay. For example, if we had a frost delay till 9 o'clock, we would say we'll keep everything from 8:30 on. Anybody that teed off before 8:30, you're cut. But with group play, you would be cutting half of some groups. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep them intact. So what we did in January was moved everybody back to 8 o'clock for that start. And so far it's been fine, but that's the challenge we have with cutting and keeping it only a half hour behind.
Any thoughts on that from the committee level?
Yeah, I think you'd have a reverse problem if you went to cutting the people off instead of pushing them back. The people wouldn't book the early tea time for fear of, so you might as well not start till 8:30 then, because they're just not gonna book them if they're gonna get cut. I think what pushing them back is the fairest way to do it. It's what I see most often in tournaments in this area here. Most tournaments are scheduling their starts at 9 o'clock because of the frost issue. Trying to not have to run into it where you have 100 players and 40 of them are showing up early and hanging around to that. So I think moving it to 8 is a good idea, and I would continue to push back. I mean, I know some people say I made a 10 o'clock tea time and I should have my 10 o'clock tea time. Well, I'm sorry, we can't do it for everybody.
We can't do that.
Agreed.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Okay, Pat, you had the schedule on comparisons to, of other courses.
I do.
I assume that's the starting spot for. I didn't print that. Okay.
Yeah. But it sure looks pretty, doesn't it?
For golf fees for the upcoming year, I would imagine.
Right. So over the past few years, we've been doing a rate comparison with local West Valley courses. I also have a few others that aren't represented on this sheet that I can share. But these are ones that are kind of a cross-section of golf courses here in the West Valley. A lot of them are 55 and older communities. We've got Copper Canyon, which is Festival. Verado now has a 55 and older community. Sun City, of course, Traditions, Pebble Creek, the Villages, and then Sun City Grand. So to me, I like to see them side by side just to do a comparison of where everybody is. And then you see some months where they're blank. And what you're seeing there are courses that do what we call dynamic pricing. They get into the off season and they have the ability to find out what the market will bear. They don't publish anything too far out, but you'll see our communities and the Sun City communities are pretty much structured to a 12-month schedule. These other communities do not. They keep their numbers kind of close to the vest, and then they get a feel for what's going on, and then 30 days or so they'll reveal what they're going to charge, and then they have yield management, which basically is the ability to go in on a given day and look at a tee sheet and see what the occupancy rate is, and if it's not to their liking, they start whittling down their prices immediately. So they might have a published price of 45 a week before the tee time. Midweek, it might be down to 40 if it's not filling up, then it goes down to 35. So it's the old airline seat game, right? So they've become very good at doing things like this. Hillcrest is one of the best, to be honest with you. Their published price and what you can get out on a golf course for are totally two different prices. But they do it based upon demand. And I think that's something maybe down the road we can have a conversation on. But what I'm seeing, the trends that I'm seeing are pretty obvious. The prices of green fees are going up. And a lot of the trends are that the guest fees outside of the community are going up significantly faster than the resident fee, which is understandable. So I wanted to share this with you. This is the first step that we use as a budgeting tool to get the rates aligned, or at least be able to present our next year's budget based on what the market would bear and what our residents would like to see. And it's just in a 3-page document, and at the end I'll show some annual memberships, and they vary across the board. Some of them didn't fit into these categories, but you're seeing 5-day memberships, you're seeing twilight memberships, you're seeing Friday, Saturday, Sunday memberships. So they're trying to catch their little niche as well, whatever their community is demanding. But from a comparison standpoint, I hope this helps. To me, it's just a lot of good information.
A question I would have, Pat, is if we tended to move in that area, so we've got 7 courses.
Right.
And say Grandview is full, Pebblebrook has considerable open times, how would you get the word out that the price was going to be $30 a round at Pebblebrook and it's still 41 at the other courses?
Right. So we have 2 distinct clientele here. We have our local residents, and there's ways in which we can communicate with them, and then we have the public play. And I kind of am in the camp with our residents that the majority of our residents, I really truly believe they're playing the amount of golf they want to play, and they're playing it when they want to play it. But there are some out there, some outliers out there that might want to play if the price is right. And we're seeing some of that the players moving to a Twilight and Super Twilight, which is great. We're seeing success with the Twilight card, things of that nature. So there's some opportunity there. Over the past 3 years since COVID, we haven't used any third-party tee time bookers. Golf Now comes to mind, Tee Golf. We have been totally independent of them, which in some regards is a good thing because there's a payoff on that. But at the same time, they have a lot of distribution channels that we're not taking advantage of. So to answer your question, Harry, those are the things from an outside or a public perspective we could take advantage of and get the word out. And I believe, what did I hear? There's 250,000 on the Phoenix Golf Now database that would have eyes on what we're trying to do by adjusting rates. But again, we're one of 200 golf courses in this metro area. So they are limited too on what they can bring to the table, but it's a new audience. So there's some opportunities here for us if we feel that we need to try and book more tee times. I will say this, to me, golf is not only it's more of an experience than anything else. And people, when you're priced right, you tend to be successful. And I think over the last years, we've been quite successful because it's a well-priced product for what we have. It's very, 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 very good. Other courses are artificially high, and they struggle, and they'll continue to struggle. But we're very fortunate. We don't have any long-term debt. We're good in those areas. And the thing I'm wanting to mention is when we start cheapening our rate, you bring a different set of problems. Wear and tear on the golf course, the golf carts. With more rounds, you have more divots, ball marks, and now the person that plays in the morning is seeing that and not getting the best experience that they might be able to get. So there's a trade-off here, and that's where we got to kind of balance this out.
Thank you, Pat. Committee members, questions for Pat?
Pat,
Tom?
on your sheet on the month of April, above Hillcrest, you have cart included. Is that for every month? Does that include cart? And what's the 4,300 on that same spot above Westbrook Village? April.
I'm glad Pat's having trouble reading his small stuff too.
That's why I asked him.
That was a note for me, but at this time,
Okay. But Hillcrest their rates do include a cart
they do.
all year round.
They do. And please notice on Hillcrest, January's price is cheaper than February's price. They're going up February and March and April.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis?
Pat, one thing I've noticed from the T sheets is that there are a lot of foursomes available between 1 and 1:30 and between 2:30 and 3. You and I have talked about that, and this plays into the role of dynamic pricing. You know, I have talked about with you perhaps having 3 twilight times, one at 1:30, 2:15, and 3. And I don't underestimate people's ability to get a deal. And if they feel they're getting a deal, they will take advantage of it. And right now, there are 0 players on those tee times.
Yeah, it goes hot and cold. I was looking at a project that I was doing, which was seeing how fast a tee sheet fills. And I agree with you, Dennis. I think there are times when the 1 to 1:30, 1:22 actually, is not as busy as the 12. But in looking at this project that I did Deer Valley and I did Stardust. And I started with how many tee times were booked via the lottery, and both of them were within a couple tee times a week in advance at 176 rounds. Then I looked 4 days later when public was starting to book, and it got up to about 170 or 185. And then I ran it today because it was today's tee sheet, and we're at 198. And I looked at it, and the only tee time that's available is 122. But there's twosomes and threesomes in that one. You know, it's hit and miss. And on a beautiful day like this today, everybody's going to go out and play. You know, we're as good as the weather. So when the weather's good, we're busy. When the weather falters a little bit, we see that slack. So yes, is there some opportunity about 1 or so? Yes, there is. So it's something to look at.
Pat, the other thing I noticed, and we've talked about this, in the first meeting we had in the fall, you gave a summary of the 4-year rounds played at all our 7 courses. And one thing I noticed is that the play at Trail Ridge and Stardust was 25% less than the play at the other courses. If we move that chart out to 8 to 10 years and the results are still the same, would we consider lowering the greens fees at those courses to get to up the rounds to the rounds played at the other courses?
I think our courses are cyclical, and Trail Ridge tends to be the least played regulation. Stardust tends to be the least played executive, and for the longest time, the reason for Stardust was it was too tough. The bunkers, if you remember, Todd took out 22 bunkers, and we're seeing an uptick in Stardust. So it's got a great practice facility, so we see a lot of activity at Stardust. Trail Ridge, you just have to drive the ball straight, and it's you got a lot of arroyos. So what we have seen growth in is a lot of play from the public at Trail Ridge. So, and I hear, and I don't know this, maybe you folks can substantiate this, Grandview sometimes doesn't get played as much from our residents' standpoint because it's too long. And I know Pebblebrook for the ladies can be long. So we have our favorites, we all do, but Stardust and Trail Ridge tend to be, at this point in time, not as busy as the Deer Valley and Echo Mesa. But I've been here long enough to see that it cycles through too. Last year, our second busiest golf course, does anybody have any idea what our second busiest? Deer Valley was number 1. Desert Trails. And I've seen it where years where Echo Mesa was number 2 or 3. I've seen it where Pebblebrook was number 1 or 2. So it cycles through. And please remember, there's those 100-day closures that we have during the summer, and that rotates. So 1 year, and I kind of put that COVID year out there and disregard that one too. So I take out the year that they're closed for 100 days, and I take out COVID, and then I look at it from that standpoint.
I'm on board with giving Pat the flexibility, and I don't know what we have to do to get the board to give him that authority. But just remember, Pat, with increased responsibility becomes increased accountability.
Okay, any other questions for Pat on this? Lisa?
Thank you, Harry. Pat, I have a question, but it may not pertain here. We may kick it through to the end, but I see on Sun City, you have sales tax above it, which led me to believe, and I think, Cliff, are you still over there? Okay, which just leads me to ask the question, have we resolved our sales tax thing completely? Yes? You didn't have to get up, you could have just, thanks.
Yes, we have.
Great, thank you so much.
Tom?
Pat, the only concern I would have on the flexible rating is I can't imagine them down to the screaming and hollering if the rate is cheaper than the member rate out here. I mean, I understand it when you're trying to fill and, any money's better than no money, but be ready for your scalp.
Yeah, and Tom, you make a great point. I think that's one of the things we've got to look at is we can't do that. We've got to make sure that the residents gets the best deal every single day. That's part of living here. But we've got a floor that we can go down to and maybe pick up a few rounds of golf. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. We can't give away something cheaper to somebody else outside the community than what our members can buy it for.
Thank you. Moving on to 4.03, outstanding issues. We'll bring up the local rules here. Pat?
So I recommend that the golf committee supports and approves the presented local rules for 2023 that Tom and Alice Wogemuth, David Eichner, and Phil Kelly created. And I think this will go a long way to keeping us current with the USGA.
Okay. I guess committee, everybody approve of passing this on? Any objections? Okay, we'll move it on. Any other outstanding issues? Any comments, Tim? Okay, committee comments. Dennis?
I have one comment, and I've addressed it with Pat before, and I think it's a lot of owner members have talked about having a practice facility of our own. And I think the lower range area of the Grandview Golf Course would be an excellent site for that. It could be implemented easily because near the parking lot where outsiders pull in and park, you could have a sign, this area restricted for residents of Sun City West only. And the owner members would feel like we have a practice area of our own, because too frequently residents come to that practice area and see people park their cars and get out and take up the space that's justifiably ours.
Tom?
This is towards Todd. I'm getting numerous complaints, and my wife getting even more. The cart path only signs that you're putting up where you're roping off areas in the fairways, could you kind of put them to the sides of the fairways and not in the middle? Most of the players out here, us older ones, are not flying the ball onto the green. We're trying to run it up. And we hit the sign and goes crazy, and then I get questions of, what can we do with that sign? It's a movable obstruction. You can move it, but put it back where it was. And just if they could try to get them out of the line of play a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get with staff on that, and we'll move those out to the edge of the fairways.
Any other comments? Lisa?
Yeah, this one goes to Pat. Pat, I want to commend your call center. I've called AM, I've called PM, and it doesn't matter whenever you call. They are always so polite and friendly, and everybody's just so nice and to deal with, and I just want to commend you because they just, doesn't matter what time of day it is, so thank you.
Okay, being no more comments from the committee, we'll open it up. Bill?
Thank you, Harry. I attended a properties committee a couple of weeks ago, and one of the issues came up from the properties board related to smoking and smoking on the patios at particularly Grandview. So, I mean, we have spoken with Pat and all our staff out there. They're not seeing it as a problem, or they're not really even seeing it, but people that approach the facility in carts, smoking cigars, cigarettes, and whatnot, bothering people while they're eating. Do you guys see any of that? Is that problematic for y'all? Yes? Frequently? We have designated area, correct? 30 feet from patio? Okay.
Do we just need some more signs put up?
Okay.
Do we need more signs put up to that effect?
I see, what I see is mainly, it's a lot of the cigars, but
Same.
if, that's mainly what it is, but I don't know what else you can do about it. And a lot of times it's the wind that's causing it to, waft back in, if you will, but I don't know if more signs are gonna help with that.
Comments, concerns, or anything we need to? Okay. All right.
Pat?
Yeah, I'm not hearing much of it. I was out on the putting green at Pebblebrook, and somebody was smoking a cigar on the green, and you could definitely tell. We can sure look at our signage and take inventory there, but to Patty's point, 30 feet from all entrances and exits from the clubhouse, and then nothing on the patio, so it's actually extended. Some of the parking spots are adjacent to the patio, so I think you catch some of that. But yeah, please know that if you see any of that happening, please tell the starter or a staff member, and we'll get it taken care of as best we can. But I'm not seeing a bunch of it.
Right. It's about really all we can do.
I just asked them to move.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, our next meeting is February 16th, right here at 1:30. Being no other comments, I've got 2:27, and the meeting is adjourned.